She mistook him for a regular barista, never expecting him to be her billionaire boss, and he fell head over heels for her. Before we dive into the story, let me know in the comments. Where are you watching from? Enjoy the story. If there were an award for the clumsiest person in town, Valentina would have won it 3 years in a row. It was official. She was late. Again. Her alarm didn't go off. The bus broke down halfway. The elevator stopped on the wrong floor because some intern pressed all the buttons like it was Guitar Hero. She sprinted down the office halls as if she were escaping a fire, her purse slipping off her shoulder, clutching an empty cup in one hand. Caffeine was her only hope for survival, and she wasn't going down without a fight. As she reached the company cafe, her eyes scanned the room. Where were the baristas? That's when she saw him. A tall man in a black hoodie and jeans, standing near the counter with his arms crossed. A new guy. Valentina didn't hesitate for a second. "Hey, you," she called out, snapping her fingers in the air. The man turned to look at her, frowning. "Me? Of course, who else? You're the only one here." He blinked, confused. "What?" She let out a dramatic sigh. "Look, I know it's your first day, but you need to be quicker, okay? I need a double espresso, no sugar, extra foam. Bring it to me in 20 minutes. Thanks." The man opened his mouth, closed it, blinked, opened it again. What? You heard me, newbie. Chop chop. I don't have all day." And with that, Valentina patted him on the shoulder and ran off before he could react. The man stood there, blinking slowly, processing what had just happened. Then he laughed. The meeting was a total disaster. First, Valentina tripped over the doorframe, banged her knee on the table, and tried to play it off as a dance move. Then, she let out a loud yawn right as the boss asked about the company's monthly goals. And to make things even worse, when Mr. Miranda asked for the performance report, she realized she had left her flash drive at home. Her boss shot her a death glare and muttered something about reconsidering the team. She was doomed. After the meeting, she desperately needed a coffee to pull herself together. She marched straight to the cafe, and there he was, the newbie in the black hoodie. And he was holding a coffee. Finally something going right today, she thought. Without hesitation, she grabbed the cup from his hand and took a big sip. Instantly, she spat it out. "What is this?" The man blinked, completely unfazed. "Black coffee." Valentina stared at the cup like it had just poisoned her. "Where is my extra foam?" He tilted his head. "Sorry, I didn't realize foam was a matter of life and death." "Oh, so now you have a sense of humor, newbie? Listen, if you want to keep this job, you need to learn the basics. Okay?" The man raised an eyebrow. "Keep my job? That's right. Now listen closely. Double espresso, no sugar, extra foam. Memorize it. Repeat after me. Extra foam. Extra foam," he repeated, barely hiding his smirk. "Good. Now go get it before I complain to the manager." The employees nearby held their breath. A thick silence filled the cafe. That's when Valentina noticed something odd. Why was everyone looking at her like she had just committed a crime? Why was a guy at the next table filming? She frowned. What? Then, a familiar voice sounded behind her. "Valentina?" She turned slowly and saw Mr. Miranda, her boss, standing there with sheer panic on his face. "What now?" Miranda swallowed hard, glanced at the man in the hoodie, and muttered as if he were afraid lightning would strike him at any moment. "You just gave orders to Mr. Enzo Salvatore." Valentina blinked. "Who?" "The CEO of the company." "Which company?" "This one." Valentina turned to look at the newbie, who now had a smug little grin on his face. You're the CEO?" He crossed his arms. "That's right." A deadly silence fell over the cafe. The employees shrank back. The security guard by the door started whispering a prayer. Valentina felt every drop of blood drain from her face. She forced a nervous smile. "So, no hard feelings, right?" Enzo tilted his head. "That depends. Do you still want me to hurry up before you call the manager?" She froze, her brain short-circuited. Her survival instincts screamed, "Run, woman!" And she did. She tried to make a run for it before she could get fired, but she didn't see the table in front of her and crashed straight into it, knocking over her purse, her coffee, and an innocent employee's muffin. The scene was straight out of a slapstick comedy movie. The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds. And then, Enzo started laughing. Not just a small chuckle, a full-blown laugh. The kind of laugh of someone who just found their new favorite source of entertainment. He looked at Valentina, who was on the floor scrambling to grab her purse, and said, This is going to be fun. At that moment, Valentina knew her life would never be the same. Inside, she was having a full-blown panic attack. She had treated the company's CEO like a rookie delivery guy. She had complained about his coffee. She had even threatened to call the manager. And now, she was in the meeting room, sitting as far away from Enzo Salvatore as possible, trying to be invisible. She kept her posture straight, hands folded in her lap, breathing like a ninja to avoid making a sound. But her mind was screaming. Is he going to fire me? Am I going to have to move to another city to escape the embarrassment? Is there a hole around here I can crawl into? As the executives settled into the meeting room, Enzo walked in calmly, now wearing a dark, perfectly tailored suit, the complete opposite of the casual sweatshirt that had fooled her earlier. He looked confident, imposing, and slightly amused. He was going to get his revenge. She could feel it in her bones. Valentina lowered her head and pretended to be deeply fascinated by her pen, as if she had never seen such an interesting object before. "Good morning, everyone," Enzo began, his tone calm but authoritative. The executives responded with formal nods. "Before we begin, there's something I'd like to mention." Valentina froze. This is it. He's going to call me out in front of everyone. She could already picture it. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we start, I'd just like to point out that we have an employee here who confuses CEOs with delivery people." Her heart pounded in her chest. "Earlier today I had a rather interesting experience." Oh my God, he's gonna say it. I was reminded of how important customer service is in this company. Lord, just take me now. And that, sometimes we all need a little humility and patience. Valentina squeezed her eyes shut, gripping her own leg to keep herself from jumping out the window. But then, nothing happened. Enzo simply smiled at the executives and moved on with the meeting agenda. He didn't mention Valentina. He let her live. She exhaled the air she had been holding in, as if she had just escaped a shark attack. The problem was, she exhaled way too loudly. Everyone in the room turned to stare at her. Valentina's eyes widened. She pretended nothing had happened, and in her panic, dropped her pen. When she bent down to pick it up, she hit her head on the table. Oh, do. The silence was absolute. The marketing director swallowed hard. The finance manager held his breath. The new intern muttered a quiet, "Oh no," and then a sound echoed through the room. Enzo's laughter. He was laughing. Not just a small chuckle, a real full laugh. "Miss Valentina." He cleared his throat. "Would you like to share something with the group?" She wanted to disappear. Vanish. Evaporate into thin air. Nothing. Just some internal reflections." "Internal reflections?" Enzo raised an eyebrow. "Yes. I was just reflecting on the importance of humility in the corporate environment." The executives looked at her as if she had just announced she saw a unicorn in the parking lot. Enzo stifled another laugh. "Very well, Valentina. I admire your dedication." And then he went back to discussing the agenda. Valentina shrank in her chair, praying for time to speed up and end the meeting. When it was finally over, she practically ran out of the room. She needed to get away, find a quiet corner, and process everything. But she hadn't even made it 5 steps before she heard the voice that already sent chills down her spine. "Miss Valentina." She stopped, closed her eyes, and took a deep breath. Rule number 1 of survival: never run from a predator. Slowly, she turned around. Enzo Salvatore stood there, hands in his pockets, studying her with an amused expression. "Let's talk." "Talk?" She let out a nervous laugh. "About what? Coffee? Delivery orders?" He smiled. "About your new role." Valentina blinked. "New role?" "Yes. From now on, you'll be my personal assistant for a week." The information hit her like a meteor. "What?" "Think of it as an opportunity, a way for us to learn from each other." "Learn from each other? What could I possibly teach a billionaire? How to spill coffee?" Enzo tilted his head. "Well, you did already teach me the importance of extra foam." Valentina felt a mix of panic and desperation. "Mr. Salvatore, I truly appreciate the offer, but I'm very busy. I have tasks to do, spreadsheets to fill." He smiled. "I already spoke with Mr. Miranda. Your tasks will be reassigned. As of now, you work for me." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. That was it. She was trapped. Trapped in the clutches of a billionaire CEO who clearly enjoyed tormenting her. Enzo stepped aside, gesturing for her to follow. "Come on, Valentina. You don't want to be late on your first day, do you?" And then, he started walking, leaving her completely stunned. Valentina looked around, searching for a miracle, an escape, a hole to hide in. But there was no way out. Taking a deep breath, she clenched her fists and followed him. If she had to go through this, she wouldn't go down without a fight. And so, the worst first day of her life was about to begin. Valentina wasn't sure what was worse, the fact that she had mistaken the company's CEO for a coffee delivery guy. The fact that instead of being fired, she now worked directly for him. The fact that he was enjoying every second of it. Enzo Salvatore walked through the office like a king parading through his castle. And Valentina? She followed behind him like an awkward penguin, holding a clipboard and trying to look like an efficient employee. "All right, Valentina. Your first task as my assistant is to write down everything I say." "Great, I'm great at taking notes." She smiled, relieved. He looked at her with a mischievous glint in his eyes. "Then write this down. I want a detailed list of priority actions for the next 3 months, categorized by department with an impact analysis and growth forecast." She blinked. "Sorry, what?" He smiled. "I talk fast. You didn't get that down?" "Oh, of course I did." She flipped the page on her clipboard and wrote "survival" right in the middle of the paper. Enzo tilted his head. "Is that the strategic analysis?" She looked at the paper, then back at him. "Yes. Interesting." He turned and kept walking. Valentina closed her eyes, muttering, "Help me, Lord," before rushing after him. This was going to be a disaster. The first serious problem of the day happened in the meeting room. Valentina had one responsibility: bring the right documents for Enzo's presentation. She spent 20 minutes checking everything before stepping into the room, convinced she was prepared. But when Enzo started speaking, he picked up the first sheet from the stack and frowned. "Valentina, this is a pizza flyer." Her eyes widened. "What?" He turned the paper toward her. "Luizo's Pizza, best in town. Special offer, 2 for 1. Silence filled the room. The directors held their breath. The marketing manager coughed to hide his laughter, and Enzo just looked at her with a smirk. "I appreciate the enthusiasm, but the company's growth strategy doesn't include pepperoni discounts." Valentina wanted to disappear. This was a mistake. I don't know how this got in here. She frantically shuffled through the papers, sending sheets flying everywhere, until she finally found the right documents. Enzo took them, scanned through quickly, and carried on with the presentation as if nothing had happened. Valentina, however, sat down and wished she could evaporate. The intern next to her whispered, "Do you prefer mozzarella or 4 cheese?" She threw a pen at him. The second problem happened with the coffee. After the meeting, Enzo asked for a coffee made the right way, and Valentina saw this as her chance for redemption. She would make the best coffee ever. She ran to the break room and analyzed everything: the beans, the water temperature, the perfect foam ratio. Nothing could go wrong. She prepared the drink with the precision of a surgeon and brought it to Enzo's desk. "Here you go, Mr. Salvatore. The perfect coffee, foam just right, ideal temperature. I even added a pinch of cinnamon to enhance the flavor." He picked up the cup and took a sip, and then he made a face. Interesting," she smiled. "Best coffee you've ever had, right?" "Actually." He looked at the cup. "This is tea." Valentina froze. "What?" He swirled the cup in his hand. "Green tea." She grabbed the coffee container in a panic. She had picked the wrong powder. But I tested everything." "Tested what?" "The spiritual depth of the drink." She wanted to cry. "I'm the worst assistant ever." Enzo smiled. "I agree. Weren't you supposed to deny that?" He chuckled. "Relax, Valentina. I like tea." She crossed her arms. "I bet if I brought you lemon juice, you'd say you liked it too." "Depends. Would it have extra foam?" She glared at him. He winked. Valentina nearly exploded with frustration. The third problem happened at Enzo's desk. Valentina was organizing some papers, trying to salvage a bit of dignity, when her elbow bumped into his picture frame. The frame fell from the desk. Valentina tried to catch it midair. But in the process, she knocked over a vase, a coffee mug, and a CEO of the Year award. Everything happened in slow motion. She managed to grab the picture frame, but the vase fell and shattered on the floor. Silence filled the room. She slowly lifted her eyes, expecting to see Enzo furious, but he seemed to be holding back a laugh. "Valentina, I can explain." "Please, go ahead." She thought for a moment. "This was a test." "A test?" "Yes, to see how patient you are. You passed. Congratulations." He crossed his arms. "Valentina, I think you're my assistant just to test me every minute." She gave an awkward laugh. "I wouldn't do that on purpose," he sighed, shaking his head. "I have a feeling this is going to be the most interesting week of my life." Valentina couldn't agree more. She was sure her first day at work was already a complete disaster, but apparently the universe wasn't done having fun at her expense. "Valentina, you're coming to the company event with me tonight." As she was about to slip away quietly, she stopped in the middle of the hallway, blinking a few times as she processed Enzo's words. "What event? Tonight? You're coming with me." "Me? But why?" "Because you're my assistant." She crossed her arms. "But I just started today." He shrugged. "Exactly. I want to see how far your ability to surprise me can go." Valentina was in shock. Her ability to surprise him? If by surprise he meant cause minor accidents and possible business crises, then mission accomplished. "But I don't know anything about corporate events. That'll make it fun." He gave a playful smile and simply walked away. A shiver ran down Valentina's spine. He was definitely going to have fun at her expense. After work, she rushed home and tore through her closet. If there was anything worse than attending a corporate event with zero experience, it was going without the right outfit. After throwing nearly every piece of clothing onto the floor, she realized her best option was a knee-length blue dress she had worn to her cousin's wedding 2 years ago. It would have to do. When she arrived at the venue, she realized her mistake. The place was like a palace. Sparkling chandeliers, red carpets, waiters carrying trays of champagne and crystal glasses. The problem? All the women were wearing long, elegant gowns from luxury brands. And Valentina, a knee-length blue dress and white sneakers. She wanted to disappear. Before she could hide behind a vase, she felt a presence beside her. Nice choice in footwear. She slowly turned and saw Enzo standing there, impeccable in his black suit, observing her with amusement. "I'm a walking disaster." "No, you're live entertainment." She closed her eyes and sighed. "Why did you bring me here again? I wanted to see if you'd cause chaos or just embarrassment." "And what's the verdict?" He smiled. "A bit of both." Classical music began to play in the background. Elegant guests started making their way to the dance floor, and Valentina decided the best thing she could do was stay in her corner and hope to go unnoticed. But Enzo clearly had other plans. "Do you dance?" She almost choked on her juice. "Me? Dance? Enzo, I tripped over my own shadow this morning." "Perfect. Then you have nothing to lose." Before she could protest, she felt her hand being pulled. In the blink of an eye, she was in the middle of the dance floor, surrounded by refined couples moving with ridiculous grace. "This is a terrible idea." "Probably." He took her hand and led her into a slow spin. She tried to follow. She really did. She stepped on his foot. Ouch! Valentina's eyes widened. "I'm sorry." He took a deep breath and stepped back. She tried to correct her movements and stepped on his other foot. "My God! Are you trying to kill me? I told you I can't dance!" Soft laughter started spreading through the ballroom. Some guests were watching them with a mix of curiosity and amusement. "Are they fighting or dancing?" Someone whispered. "I think it's a new type of combat." Valentina huffed. "Let's get out of here before I break your ankle." Enzo held back a laugh and led her off the dance floor. Her strategy to stay out of trouble lasted about 5 minutes. As they walked through the ballroom, a waiter passed by, carrying a tray full of champagne glasses, and that's when it happened. She bumped into him. The glasses flew. She tried to stop the disaster, but only made it worse. The glasses shattered on the floor with a deafening crash. Silence reigned for 10 seconds. And then, "Wow, was amazing!" a guest exclaimed. "Broken glasses again?" "That's the 3rd time this year." People started laughing and applauding. Valentina was so frozen that she didn't know whether to run or pretend nothing had happened. Enzo, on the other hand, seemed completely at ease. "You definitely turned a boring event into a spectacle." "I'm going to leave here in handcuffs, aren't I?" "If you do, at least it'll be for a good reason." She looked at him, outraged. "You enjoy chaos, don't you?" He took a sip of champagne. "I'm just saying it might be interesting to have someone unpredictable around." She stayed quiet for a moment, but before she could come up with a response, the microphone screeched, and the MC announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the toast. Please, raise your glasses." Valentina took a deep breath. It was just a toast. What could go wrong? She picked up a glass, raised it, and took a sip, and choked. The toast stopped halfway through. Enzo closed his eyes and shook his head. There's really no saving you. She cleared her throat, set the glass down on the table, and crossed her arms. But I'm your assistant, so your problem. He laughed. And for the first time, Valentina realized that maybe, just maybe, working with Enzo Salvatore wouldn't be so bad. The next morning, Valentina walked into the office, trying to go unnoticed. Her strategy? Keep her head down, walk fast, and if possible, blend in with the plants in the reception area. Unfortunately, her strategy failed miserably. Let's play a little game for those who only read the comments. Write Pepsi Cola in the comments. Only those who made it this far will understand. And now, let's continue with the story. Good morning, glassbreaker. She stopped in the middle of the hallway, closed her eyes, and sighed before turning around. There was Enzo, leaning against the doorframe, holding a cup of coffee and looking entirely too pleased. Good morning, billionaire who enjoys my suffering. He raised an eyebrow. Did you sleep well? Oh, sure. It was wonderful to sleep knowing I've become the corporate joke of the week. Don't exaggerate. I've seen worse. She crossed her arms. Like what? Once an executive from another country came to negotiate a contract and mistook the meeting room door for the storage closet. He was stuck there for 3 hours. Valentina blinked. And did you rescue him? No. But I did slide a bottle of water under the door. My God, you're a monster, he laughed. Let's get to work, Valentina. There's still plenty of chaos for you to create. She rolled her eyes and followed him. The morning went smoothly. Well, smoothly by Valentina's standards. She managed to organize the right paperwork, avoid coffee spills, and even memorize a few key client names for Enzo's meetings. But, of course, things couldn't stay normal for long. At lunchtime, Enzo took her to an upscale restaurant for a meeting with a foreign investor. Valentina, this is Mr. Takeda, our Japanese partner. She smiled and extended her hand. Nice to meet you. He responded in Japanese. Valentina smiled politely, not understanding a single word. Ah, yes, of course, the man seemed pleased. Enzo tilted his head, intrigued. Did you understand what he just said? Not a clue. And you still answered, of course? It's a talent of mine. He held back a laugh and gestured for everyone to take their seats. During lunch, Valentina decided to keep a low profile. She wasn't going to say anything that could cause trouble. But her plan fell apart in a matter of minutes. As she tried to cut a piece of salmon, her hand slipped, and the knife went flying, straight toward Enzo. By reflex, he dodged, and the utensil landed right on Mr. Takeda's plate. Valentina froze. The investor slowly picked up the knife, studying the scene as if he had just witnessed an assassination attempt. Silence fell over the table. Then, to her total surprise, Takeda started laughing. He said something in Japanese, and Enzo translated. He said he's never seen a negotiation start with a ninja attack. Valentina wanted to sink into the floor and disappear. Tell him it was an accident. Enzo laughed and translated her words. Takeda kept laughing and waved a hand as if to say it wasn't a big deal. She exhaled in relief. Well, at least no one got hurt. But the moment she said that, she took a sip of juice and choked. She coughed so loudly that people at other tables turned to look. A waiter rushed over. Miss, are you okay? She waved a hand, trying to catch her breath. Takeda turned to Enzo and spoke again. The CEO smiled and translated. He's asking if you'd like some tea to help. Valentina shot Enzo a glare. If it's anything like the tea I made yesterday, I'd rather choke. The investor didn't understand the joke, but he laughed anyway. When they finally left the restaurant, Valentina let out an exhausted sigh. Why am I like this? Like what? A walking disaster wherever I go. Enzo put his hands in his pockets. You might not realize it, but I think your personal misfortune is kind of charming. She narrowed her eyes at him. Was that a compliment? Depends. If I say yes, are you going to throw another knife at me? She huffed and kept walking. But then she stopped when she noticed a small group of journalists across the street. Photographers. Before she could ask what was going on, Enzo had already noticed. Great. Problem? Yeah. Looks like my ex-fiancée showed up at an event, and the paparazzi want to know if I was there with her. Valentina's eyes widened. Wait, your ex-fiancée? He sighed, looking slightly annoyed. Yeah, Charlotte. Long story. She frowned. And how are you going to avoid the reporters? It's simple. You're going to help me. A shiver of alarm ran down her spine. I don't like that tone. Pretend we're a couple. She froze. What? He shrugged. If they think I'm in a new relationship, they'll lose interest in Charlotte. She shook her head frantically. No, no, no! Terrible idea. I don't know how to fake it. Sure you do. You fake being a good assistant all the time. She gasped. Hey! But before she could argue more, Enzo took her hand, intertwining their fingers. A jolt ran through her body. What on earth was happening? Before she could process her own thoughts, Enzo smiled at the photographers and wrapped his arm around her waist. Flashes started going off. Valentina was sure she was going to faint. Just smile, Valentina. If I smile too much, my cheeks will cramp. He chuckled and whispered, You're terrible at pretending. She narrowed her eyes. And you enjoy this way too much. Always. The chaos was just beginning. Valentina had no idea how she ended up in this situation. One moment she was peacefully enjoying her lunch, and the next her billionaire boss was holding her hand and posing for photos like they were a loving couple. Just smile, Valentina. She tried. She really did. But her smile felt forced and completely panicked. You look like a wax figure. Relax, Enzo whispered, still smiling for the cameras. Relax. You threw me into this circus without warning. He didn't even blink. If it helps, you're looking great in the pictures. She wanted to scream, but before she could say anything, the reporters started shouting questions. Mr. Salvatore, is this your new girlfriend? When did you start dating? Is it serious or just a fling? Valentina swallowed hard and looked at Enzo. He was still smiling calmly, as if this was no big deal. Oh, great. So this is how I die? She muttered. Shh. Just stay by my side and act natural. She tried, but the problem was that acting natural wasn't exactly her specialty. The result? She tripped over her own feet and almost fell backward. Luckily, Enzo caught her by the waist. The problem? Now it looked even more romantic. The flashes exploded around them. My God, you don't make things easy, he whispered. It was the heat of the moment. She shot back, trying to cover up her embarrassment. After a few minutes of photos and reporters yelling, Enzo finally ended the show, leading Valentina inside the building. As soon as they were inside, she jumped away from him. Are you insane? He laughed. It worked, didn't it? They forgot about Charlotte. She crossed her arms and huffed. Great. Now they forgot your ex, but they'll spend the rest of the week thinking I'm your girlfriend. He shrugged. I've seen worse problems. Oh, really? Because from where I stand, this is in the top 3 of my biggest disasters. He tried to hold back a laugh. What's number 1? The day I went to ask for a raise and ended up hitting my head on the boss's desk. He let out a chuckle. You know, Valentina, I'm starting to think you were sent into my life just to entertain me. She scowled. Good for you. Now give me my normal life back. Ah, about that. She didn't like his tone. What now? He scratched the back of his neck. It's going to be hard to undo this rumor quickly, so we might have to keep up the story for a little while. She blinked. A little while? What kind of little while? He smirked. Just long enough for Charlotte to stop chasing me. Valentina felt a chill. You're telling me you want me to keep pretending to be your girlfriend? He gave her that calculating look. Technically, yes, but look on the bright side. You don't have to pay for coffee while you're in this role. She widened her eyes. I can't believe you think that makes up for this. He laughed. All right, I can also offer you a little extra bonus on your salary. She crossed her arms and narrowed her eyes. How much? Enough to make you reconsider. Valentina bit her lip. She didn't want to admit it, but if the money was good, maybe it would be worth the trouble. Okay, and how long will I have to do this? A few weeks, maybe a month. A month? Relax, it could be less. But it could also be more, depending on the situation. She covered her face with her hands. Is this really happening? Yes, and you're about to say yes. She lowered her hands and looked at him with pure defeat. You know something, Enzo? You have a special talent for turning my life into complete chaos. He smiled. Right back at you, Valentina. She huffed. If I get arrested for emotional fraud, you're paying my bail. Deal. And with that, Valentina signed herself up for a month of madness. The next morning, the office was buzzing. Everywhere she walked, people whispered, stole glances at her, and then tried to act natural when she passed by. But the worst part came when Charlotte showed up. Enzo's ex-fiancée stormed into the office like a hurricane, dressed in designer clothes and wearing oversized sunglasses. Where is he? Everyone froze. Valentina tried to hide behind a stack of folders, but it was too late. Charlotte saw her. Slowly, she removed her sunglasses, revealing sharp green eyes. "You're the girl from the photos?" Valentina forced a nervous smile. "Haha, me? Well, about that." Before she could come up with an excuse, Enzo appeared. "Charlotte, what a surprise!" She crossed her arms and narrowed her eyes. "So it's true? You traded a sophisticated fiancé for this?" Valentina gasped. "Whoa, let's take it easy there, evil Barbie." Charlotte raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me, did you say something?" Valentina gave a fake smile. "No, not at all." Enzo stepped in before a war could break out. "Yes, Charlotte, I'm with Valentina now, and I ask you to respect that." Charlotte gave him a suspicious look. This all seemed so sudden, almost fake. Valentina immediately panicked, but before she could spiral into despair, Enzo did something completely unexpected. He gently held Valentina's face and kissed her, in front of everyone. Valentina froze. Her brain shut down. She heard the whispers around the office, saw Charlotte narrowing her eyes, clearly furious, and when Enzo pulled away, he smiled. "Still think it's fake?" Charlotte turned red with rage. "This isn't over." And with that, she stormed off, her heels clicking loudly against the floor. Enzo turned to Valentina, looking pleased. But she was still frozen, completely in shock. It took her a few seconds to react. And when she did, she smacked his arm. "You kissed me in front of everyone?" He smiled. "You played along beautifully." She pointed a finger at him. "You're going to pay for this." "I already am. And quite well, I might add." She growled in frustration. And just like that, the crazy plan was officially in motion. Valentina was still in shock. It wasn't every day that an ordinary woman, without millions in her bank account, without a designer-filled closet, and without a private driver, got kissed in public by a billionaire. And even less so when the kiss was meant to fool an angry ex-fiancé. In the last 30 minutes, she had gone through at least 5 different emotions. First, sheer panic. Then, extreme embarrassment. After that, growing anger. And now, irritation so strong it was only rivaled by the day a pigeon stole her lunch at the park. "You're going to pay for this," Valentina repeated for the 10th time. Enzo, completely relaxed, was sitting in his leather chair, slowly spinning to the side and studying his fingers as if nothing had happened. "I already am." She crossed her arms. "No. Now there's an extra charge, the public humiliation bonus." He held back a laugh and raised his hands in surrender. "All right, how much is your wounded pride worth?" She opened her mouth to answer but hesitated. The worst part? She had no idea how to price this. 1,000? 2,000? How much was it worth to be used as a distraction for problematic ex-fiancés? Before she could reply, Enzo's phone rang. He picked up, listened for a few seconds, and sighed. "Looks like Charlotte wants dinner." Valentina nearly choked. "What?" "She wants to see us together to believe the story." "I refuse." He gave her an amused look. "You already refused once, and look where we are." She scowled. "Not my fault, you're a professional manipulator." He smiled. "How about a free dinner and another bonus?" She thought for 5 seconds, then sighed. "This is getting expensive for you, Salvatore." He shrugged, "And worth every penny." Valentina had been nervous all day. The meeting was set for 8 o'clock in the evening, with Charlotte and her current boyfriend. That made everything 10 times worse. Now, it wasn't just about keeping up the act in front of her boss's ex-fiancé. She also had to pretend to be in a perfect relationship while another man analyzed every detail. At the end of the workday, Enzo took her to a luxury boutique. She blinked, confused. "Why are we here?" He smiled. "Because if you show up to dinner wearing sneakers again, Charlotte will get suspicious." She frowned. "What's your problem with my sneakers?" "Nothing. But Charlotte is practically a fashion radar. And if we're going to fool someone, we'd better do it right." She crossed her arms. "And you expect me to spend a fortune on a dress just to keep this lie going?" "No. I'll buy it for you." Her eyes widened. "What?" "It's an investment. You just bought me." He laughed. "No, you sold yourself, and for a very good price, I might add." She muttered something under her breath while he called over a sales associate. Within minutes, Valentina was wearing a long red dress and high heels that made her feet silently weep. Enzo looked her up and down and nodded. "Now that's more like it." "I can't breathe properly." "Perfect. Charlotte will believe it." "You really have no heart." He just smiled. At exactly 8 o'clock, they arrived at the restaurant. Charlotte was already there, sitting with her companion, a man named Gustavo, who looked like he had been sculpted by a Renaissance artist. Valentina felt the pressure mount. They sat down. The waiter handed them menus, and an uncomfortable silence settled over the table. Charlotte looked Valentina up and down. "Red suits you." Valentina gave a tense smile. "Oh, thanks. You also look nice." "I know." Valentina resisted the urge to roll her eyes. Charlotte then turned to Enzo. "So, how long have you two been together?" He took Valentina's hand and smiled. "A few weeks. But it feels like we've known each other forever, doesn't it, dear?" Valentina felt a chill in her stomach. "Yes, Enzo is wonderful." She tried to look in love, but it was hard to fake affection for someone when she was busy hating the situation. Gustavo took a sip of wine and looked at her. "So you work at his company?" "Yes, I'm his assistant." Charlotte raised an eyebrow. "Interesting, so that's how it started?" Valentina swallowed hard. Yes, we just got closer over time." Charlotte smiled, clearly unconvinced. The waiter returned to take their orders. Nervous, Valentina blurted out the first dish she saw. "I'll have this escargot thing." Charlotte smirked. "Wow, I never would have guessed you liked escargot." That's when Valentina realized her mistake. She had just ordered snails. Her stomach turned instantly. She glanced at Enzo in panic. He was barely holding back his laughter. Dinner continued with Charlotte's sharp questions, Valentina's forced answers, and Gustavo observing it all as if he were watching a reality show. When the food arrived, Valentina stared at her plate like it was a survival challenge. The waiter placed the escargots on the table. She swallowed hard. Charlotte smiled, pleased. "Go on, eat." Valentina picked up her fork with trembling hands. Seeing the situation, Enzo decided to step in. He took her fork and interrupted. "Actually, Valentina is more of a seafood fan. Waiter, could you bring her a grilled salmon instead?" She exhaled in relief. Charlotte narrowed her eyes. "Always protecting her, aren't you, Enzo?" He smiled calmly. "Always." Dinner finally ended, and to Valentina's great relief, she had survived. In the car on the way home, she crossed her arms and looked at Enzo. "If this happens again, I want a raise," he smiled. "I was expecting that," she huffed. "I swear, I think you enjoy watching me suffer." He kept his eyes on the road and smirked slightly. "Maybe a little." Valentina leaned her head against the window, exhausted. This was far from over. Valentina woke up that morning with one absolute certainty: she desperately needed a more normal life. In the past few days, her routine had been completely absurd. She started as a temporary assistant to a billionaire CEO, became his supposed girlfriend overnight, nearly died of embarrassment at an awkward dinner with his ex-fiancée, and now had to deal with the fact that the entire world believed they were the perfect couple. She picked up her phone and, to her complete horror, her name was trending. Valenzo. Couple of the year. She nearly threw her phone out the window. This is a nightmare. A living nightmare. She got up, dragged herself to the kitchen, and did what she always did in moments of crisis. Grabbed a giant jar of Nutella and ate it straight from the spoon. The plan was to ignore the problem and pretend the universe would fix it on its own. But then her phone rang. She answered without looking. "If this is another disaster, leave me alone." "Good morning to you too, Valentina." She closed her eyes and sighed. "Enzo, it's way too early for your confident CEO voice." "Relax, it's not a disaster." She raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure? Because last time you said that, I ended up at dinner with evil Barbie and a Prada model." He laughed on the other end of the line. "This time, it's just business." "Thank God." "But, oh no, there's always a but." He ignored her complaint and continued. "We have a business trip tomorrow. We'll be gone for 3 days." She froze. "What?" "It's an important investor conference on a private island. I need you to come with me." She let out a dramatic sigh. "Why me? Why not take Wu Guangle? He seems way more efficient." "Because I need my girlfriend to be there," she groaned. "You do realize this lie is going to spiral out of control, right?" "We're in control, Valentina. Let's play a little game for those who only read the comments. Write hot dog in the comments. Only those who get this far will understand. And now, let's get back to the story. You say that like it's easy, but I'm the person who spills champagne and nearly stabs investors with knives. Exactly. Guaranteed entertainment." She mumbled something unintelligible. "Enzo, do I really have to go on this trip?" The contract says yes. She let out a loud groan. I hate you. See you tomorrow at 7. And he hung up. Valentina stared at the ceiling. This is not going to end well. The next morning arrived way too fast. Valentina was still trying to wrap her head around traveling with Enzo when a black car pulled up in front of her building. The driver opened the door, and there was Enzo, as impeccably dressed as ever, with that irritatingly calm smile. Ready for your international debut? She flopped into the seat with a sigh. I'm not famous, Enzo. I'm just the fool who agreed to this deal. The world disagrees. Have you seen the headlines? She crossed her arms and huffed. I have, and if you laugh about it, I swear I'll put super glue on your office chair. He chuckled softly, but said nothing. Enzo's private jet was about the same size as Valentina's apartment. She tried to act normal, but when she saw the reclining leather seats, minibar, and even a personal chef, she nearly had an internal meltdown. So this is what it means to be rich. You get used to it pretty fast. Enzo, I walked in here, and the pilot knew my name before I even said hello. He shrugged. I told them you're part of my team. That's more terrifying than reassuring. After a few hours of flying, they landed on the private island where the conference was taking place. Valentina didn't want to admit it, but the place was paradise. White sand, crystal clear waters, and a luxurious hotel straight out of a movie. As soon as they walked into the lobby, Enzo got a message. He read it quickly and made a strange face. There's a slight problem. She closed her eyes. Please no. The hotel only had suites available. Her eyes snapped open in panic. And, he rubbed the back of his neck, we're sharing a room. She froze. I'm going to sleep in the same room as you? Looks like it. Enzo, I need a minute. She walked to a corner of the lobby, took a deep breath, and came back. All right, as long as I have my own bed, no problem. He smiled. Of course, I'm a gentleman. That's debatable. When they walked into the suite, Valentina's jaw dropped. The place was bigger than her parents' house. There was a marble bathtub, a balcony with an ocean view, and a massive bed. She sighed in relief when she spotted a large couch in the corner. Great, I'll sleep on the couch. Enzo raised an eyebrow. The bed is huge. She glared at him. Not a chance. I'm just saying it would be more comfortable. She grabbed a pillow from the couch and threw it at him. You're so shameless, you know that? He laughed, holding up his hands. Okay, you win. The event kicked off that evening with a beachfront gala dinner. Valentina was more nervous than ever. She had already survived one dinner with Charlotte, but now she had to spend an entire weekend pretending to be Enzo's girlfriend in front of investors from all over the world. She grabbed a glass of champagne and took a quick sip to calm her nerves. Enzo noticed and smiled. Drinking to forget? Drinking to prepare. He laughed and took her hand, intertwining their fingers. No need to stress so much. You just have to smile and look fascinated by me. She raised an eyebrow. That's the hardest job I've ever had. He smirked. I bet it's more fun than filling out spreadsheets. She rolled her eyes. Can't argue with that. The night had passed without any major disasters until Enzo suggested a dance. Not again. Do you remember what happened last time? He placed his hands on her waist and guided her to the dance floor. This time, I'll lead. Just relax. She tried to obey, and for the first time she didn't step on his foot. They moved across the ballroom as if they were truly a couple. For a moment, Valentina forgot it was all just a charade. Her heart started beating faster when Enzo brought his face close to hers. She held her breath. He whispered in her ear. This is starting to feel real, isn't it? She didn't know how to answer. Because, in that moment, it almost did. The problem with pretending to be in a relationship with a billionaire was that, at some point, you started wondering what was real and what was just an act. Valentina realized that night, in the middle of the dance floor, with Enzo holding her waist and whispering in her ear. Her heart was pounding so hard she wondered if he could hear it, and when he smiled in that teasing way, all she could do was let out a nervous laugh and look away. What? He asked. Nothing. It's just, all of this feels surreal. Do you want me to pinch you to prove it's real? Don't you dare. He chuckled softly and a strange shiver ran down her spine. Before she had time to figure out her own feelings, one of the investors approached them, smiling brightly. Mr. Salvatore, it's always a pleasure to see you. And is this your girlfriend? Enzo wrapped an arm around her and nodded with a charming smile. That's right, this is Valentina. The man looked at her curiously. And how did you two meet? Valentina felt a flicker of panic. She wasn't prepared for that question, but Enzo, as always, answered without hesitation. It was at work. I was undercover at the office when she mistook me for a delivery guy. The investor laughed. How interesting. Love at first sight? Valentina nearly choked on her own breath. Enzo gave a mysterious smile and looked at her. Something like that. She wanted to scream, or maybe punch him, but instead she just smiled and pretended everything was under control. When the investor walked away, she nudged Enzo with her elbow. Something like that? Are you trying to give me a heart attack? You got nervous. That's interesting, she huffed. I was not nervous. I was just caught off guard. Sure. Stop smiling like that. Like what? Like you're enjoying this. He laughed. Maybe I am. She made a face and stepped away. I need a drink before I lose my mind. He watched her walk away, still smiling. The next morning, Enzo seemed oddly distracted. Valentina noticed because for the first time since she met him, he wasn't teasing her. He just sat beside her at breakfast, stared at his coffee cup like he was solving a mystery, and stayed quiet. She frowned. What's wrong? He looked up. What? Nothing. That's a lie. You're way too quiet. That never happens. He sighed and set the cup down. Maybe I'm thinking. Thinking about what? He hesitated, then gave a small smile. You. Valentina froze. Excuse me? He shrugged. In the past few days you've become my assistant, my supposed girlfriend, almost gave an investor a heart attack, and made me laugh more than anyone has in years. She blinked. Thank you? He laughed and shook his head. I think I want to test something. What? Do you trust me? The real question is, should I trust you? He took her hand and intertwined his fingers with hers. Just trust me. Valentina's breath caught in her throat. That night, he took her out for a surprise dinner. She had no idea what to expect. When they arrived, they were on a private beach with a table set under soft lights and the sound of waves in the background. She looked at Enzo suspiciously. What is this? A bet? A bet on what? He smiled and pulled out a chair for her to sit. If, by the end of the night, you don't admit you liked it, I'll add another bonus to your paycheck. She crossed her arms. Enzo, you don't have to buy my opinion. Then just enjoy it. And she tried. The dinner was perfect. They talked about everything and nothing, laughed until they almost choked, and Valentina caught herself thinking that if this wasn't fake, it could be the most amazing date of her life. But that was the problem. It wasn't real. Or was it? She didn't know anymore. After dinner, he led her along the beach, took off his shoes, and rolled up his pant legs. She laughed. The billionaire CEO is about to get his feet wet? This is unheard of. Maybe you're changing me, Valentina. Her heart sped up. They walked in silence for a while until he took her hand. She didn't pull away, and when he looked at her like that, she knew she was in trouble. You feel it too, don't you? She swallowed hard. Feel what? He leaned in closer. This. Whatever it is. She opened her mouth to deny it, but she couldn't because that would be a lie. Before she could overthink it, he kissed her. And this time there were no journalists, no ex-fiancés, no one watching, just the two of them. And for the first time, it felt real. Valentina didn't sleep that night. After the kiss, they stayed silent for a while. Enzo didn't push, didn't ask questions. He just took her back to the hotel, wished her good night, and went to the couch. And now here she was, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of what was happening. Because the worst part was that she wanted it to be real. The next morning, as they had breakfast, Enzo finally spoke. I know you're confused. She looked up at him. Very. He smiled. So let's make a deal. Forget the contracts, the lies. Let's see where this goes. She blinked. Where this goes? Us. Her heart sped up. This isn't a bet? No, not this time. She stayed quiet. Then she smiled. You're going to regret this. He laughed and took her hand. I doubt it. And for the first time, Valentina stopped worrying about what was right or wrong, and just let it happen. The worst part of getting involved with Enzo Salvatore wasn't the chaos he brought into her life. It was the fact that Valentina was starting to like the chaos. The morning after their strangely honest conversation, she was still trying to process everything. I mean, what exactly did this mean? There was no contract anymore, no pretense, and that made her stomach turn. When she walked into the breakfast lounge, Enzo was already there, flipping through a newspaper and drinking his coffee like the world was a normal, peaceful place. He looked up and smiled. "Good morning." Valentina sat down slowly, still watching him with suspicion. "Good morning." He took a sip of coffee and tilted his head. "Why are you looking at me like that?" "Because I'm trying to figure out if you're really serious about all this." He smirked. "Still don't believe me?" She sighed. "You're a man who's used to winning, Enzo. If this were a bet, it would make perfect sense. But now, with no contract and no games, you still want this?" He leaned forward and held her hand across the table. "I do. And I think you do too." She swallowed hard. "Maybe," he chuckled. "I'll take that as a yes." Before she could respond, one of the conference organizers approached. "Mr. Salvatore, they're waiting for you at the morning meeting." Enzo nodded and looked at Valentina. "Wait for me here later? I want to take you somewhere." She frowned. "Take me where?" "It's a surprise," she sighed. "This never ends well." He winked. "You love it." And then he left, leaving Valentina there, trying to decide whether to laugh or run away. 2 hours later, Valentina was sitting on the hotel balcony when Enzo appeared, a dangerous smile on his face. "Ready to go?" She raised an eyebrow. "Go where?" "You'll see." Before she could protest, he took her hand and led her out of the hotel. They got on a boat, and within minutes, they were on a small island, far from the conference. Valentina looked around, surprised. The beach was beautiful, empty, with crystal clear water and the sun shining in a bright blue sky. "Wow, what is this place?" "My favorite spot when I want to escape everything." She glanced at him, suspicious. "And why did you bring me here?" "Because I wanted some time alone with you." She swallowed hard. "Enzo." "Shh, stop overthinking. Just enjoy it." And for some reason, she did exactly that. They spent hours there, talking about everything and nothing. For the first time, Enzo wasn't the billionaire CEO, full of strategic moves and calculated charm. He was just a guy, laughing at her bad jokes, telling stories about his childhood, asking things he had never asked before. And Valentina realized, too late, that she was truly falling for him. It was only when the sun started to set that he took her hand again and pulled her closer. "Tell me the truth, Valentina. Does this still feel like a lie to you?" She tried not to look away, but she couldn't lie. "No," he smiled. "Good, because I don't want it to be." And then he kissed her. This time, no games, no ex-fiancés watching, no journalists taking pictures, just the two of them. And for the first time, she didn't try to resist. The next day they returned to the city, and that's when reality hit them again. Because the press was waiting. Since they got back, Valentina hadn't had a moment of peace. Every time she stepped out for coffee, there were photographers. If she opened her phone, there were new headlines. Who is the woman who stole the billionaire's heart? The romance no one expected. She threw herself onto the office couch and sighed. This is getting out of control. Enzo, looking completely relaxed, took a sip of his coffee. "Relax. People forget things eventually," says the man who's always on magazine covers. He smiled. "Want to get away for a few days?" She lifted her head, surprised. "What? Let's disappear for a while. Somewhere with no cameras, no journalists, just the two of us." She blinked. "You're serious about this, aren't you?" "Very," she thought for a moment. The idea of escaping everything was tempting. And, if she was honest with herself, the idea of being alone with Enzo was even more tempting. She took a deep breath and smiled. "All right, let's run away." And just like that, they vanished for a week. The days away from the city were the best of Valentina's life. Far from the flashing lights and headlines, she finally saw who Enzo really was. And by the time the week ended, she knew there was no turning back. She was completely in love, but there was a problem. Did he feel the same? She didn't want to ask, and he wasn't saying anything. But the day they returned, something changed. As they arrived at the company building, a group of journalists waited at the entrance, and in the middle of them, Charlotte. Valentina felt her stomach turn. His ex-fiancée crossed her arms and smirked. "Welcome back." Her tone was cold, calculated. Enzo sighed. "Charlotte, what do you want?" She looked at Valentina with a smug smile. "I just want to know, how long is this little game going to last?" Valentina frowned. "Game?" Charlotte looked her straight in the eye. "Do you really think this is real?" Valentina's heart stopped. Charlotte's smirk widened. "You haven't figured it out yet?" "He never loses." She turned to Enzo, waiting for a response, waiting for him to deny it, but he said nothing. And in that moment, Valentina felt her world collapse. What was real? What was just a game? Was Charlotte right? She took a step back. Valentina, Enzo started. But she was already walking away, and without another word, she turned and left. Valentina had never run so fast in her life. She had no idea where she was going. She just knew she had to get away. Away from Enzo's stare, from Charlotte's poisonous tone, from the chaos in her own head. The worst part was that, for a brief moment, she had believed it. Believed that he felt something real. But now, she didn't know anymore, and it hurt. When she finally stopped, she realized she was in a small cafe downtown, sitting alone, staring into space. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. She didn't need to look to know who it was. Enzo. She ignored every call, and when she saw he had sent a message, she squeezed her eyes shut, trying not to cry. "Meet me, let me explain." But the problem was, she wasn't sure if she wanted to hear it. On the other side of the city, Enzo stood in his office, staring at his phone, frustrated. He had never been the kind of man to lose control. He always knew how to handle any situation. But Valentina? She was different, and the way she had walked away without even listening to him frustrated him more than he wanted to admit. William walked in, analyzing the scene. "She still won't answer?" Enzo tossed his phone onto the desk and sighed. "No." "And what did you expect?" After what Charlotte said, anyone would feel insecure. "But it's not true." William crossed his arms. "Then why didn't you say that in front of everyone?" Enzo went silent. Because the truth was, he didn't have an answer. Maybe it was pride. Maybe he had been caught off guard. Maybe it was because he knew he loved Valentina but had never said it out loud. And now, it might be too late. The following days felt like the longest of Valentina's life. She went back to her regular job, avoiding any news about Enzo, burying herself in spreadsheets, pretending everything was fine. But deep down, it wasn't. And everyone around her could see it. "You look pale," her friend Sophia said as they sipped coffee on their break. "Thanks, love the compliment. I'm serious. You're not eating properly, not sleeping properly. What's going on?" Valentina sighed, stirring her coffee. "Nothing." Sophia narrowed her eyes. "This is about that handsome CEO, isn't it?" Valentina stopped stirring and looked away. "I knew it." Sophia slammed her hand on the table. "Shh. Do you want to announce it to the whole world?" "Yes, because you never told me about this crazy romance, and now you're acting like the lead in a dramatic soap opera." Valentina closed her eyes and sighed. "Because I thought he liked me. But now, I don't know what's real and what's just a game." Sophia pressed her lips together. "Have you thought about asking him?" Valentina let out a humorless laugh. If he wanted to explain, he would have said something right then and there. Or maybe he just got lost in the moment. Valentina shook her head. "It doesn't matter anymore. It's over." But as she said it out loud, she realized how much it hurt, and how much, deep down, she didn't really want it to be over. 3 days later, Valentina received an unexpected invitation. An elegant box was delivered to her at work. Inside was a stunning dress and a small note. "Meet me tonight, Vista Azul Restaurant. I need to talk to you. Enzo." She almost threw the box away, but something inside her made her stop. Because despite everything, she wanted to hear him out. For the first time, she didn't want to run. That night, Valentina arrived at the restaurant more nervous than ever. Enzo was already there, waiting, and as soon as he saw her, he stood up immediately. She sat down slowly. Silence filled the space for a few seconds. "Thank you for coming," he said. "Say what you need to say, Enzo." He ran a hand through his hair, looking more nervous than ever. "I'm not good at talking about feelings. I never have been." She didn't reply. He went on. "But I need you to believe me when I say that none of this was a game to me. None of it." She took a deep breath. "Then why did you stay silent that day?" He looked straight into her eyes. "Because I've never been afraid of losing anything in my life, until I realized I was about to lose you." She felt her heart skip a beat, but she said nothing. He continued. "You brought chaos into my life, Valentina, and I've never wanted anything more than I want you." She lowered her gaze. "And what if it's too late?" He took her hand. "You're still here." "So it's not." She took a deep breath, feeling the tears coming. Because the truth was, she never really wanted to leave. And so, for the first time, she chose to stay. If someone had told Valentina months ago that her life would completely change after mistaking a billionaire for a delivery guy, she would have laughed and kept eating her lunch. But there she was, holding Enzo Salvatore's hand in the middle of a lavish event, being watched by dozens of people, treated as the love of his life. And the most surprising part? This time, it wasn't a lie. She smiled at him, feeling that familiar flutter in her stomach. "Why are you looking at me like that?" she asked. He squeezed her hand lightly and tilted his head, flashing one of those smiles that made her completely lose her composure. "Because I'm about to do something that could change our lives forever." She blinked, confused. "What?" But before she could get an answer, Enzo took a step back and right there in front of everyone, got down on one knee. Valentina held her breath. The room fell into complete silence. "What are you doing?" she whispered, completely frozen. He just smiled even more. And then, he opened a small black velvet box. Inside, a diamond ring sparkled. Valentina's heart pounded. "Valentina?" His voice was steady, but there was an emotion in it she had never heard before. All the guests held their breath. The photographers prepared for the shot of the year. Charlotte, who was in the back of the room, almost choked on her champagne. But none of that mattered. At that moment, it was just the two of them. "From the day you walked into my life, everything has been chaotic." She widened her eyes. "Is this a love declaration or a complaint?" He laughed and kept going. "I've never met someone who could knock over so many things in a single day. Or someone who could challenge me and make me laugh at the same time." She bit her lip, feeling the tears well up. "Enzo," he took her hand and gently kissed her fingers. "You changed my life, Valentina, and I don't want to spend another day without you by my side." Her heart was pounding so hard she wondered if everyone else could hear it. "So, will you marry me?" Silence. The entire room waited for her answer. Valentina looked at the ring, then at Enzo, then at the crowd watching, and she realized there was nothing to think about. She smiled brightly and nodded. "Enzo Salvatore, I do." The room erupted in applause and cheers. Enzo stood up quickly, lifted Valentina into his arms, and spun her around. She let out a joyful laugh and hugged him tightly. It was official. She was going to marry a billionaire. Who would have thought? 2 weeks later, the wedding took place. But like everything in their lives, nothing was exactly traditional. It wasn't one of those luxurious receptions in an Italian castle, as everyone expected. Instead, it was an intimate beach ceremony at sunset, with their closest friends and a wedding cake that nearly fell to the ground when Valentina bumped into the table. "Well, at least now, you only knock over cakes instead of million-dollar contracts," Enzo teased. She playfully pinched his arm. "If you keep annoying me, I'll throw the cake in your face. That would be a great way to start a wedding." She rolled her eyes but laughed. And then, the moment arrived. The guests took their seats, the soft music began to play, and Valentina walked in, arm in arm with her father, trying not to trip over her own dress. When her eyes met Enzo's, she forgot everything around her. He never looked nervous. But in that moment, there was something different about him. Something that said without words that he had never wanted anything as much as he wanted the woman standing in front of him. And then, the vows began. Enzo took her hands, took a deep breath, and smiled. "I never thought the most important day of my life would start with one of your mistakes." The guests laughed. Valentina raised an eyebrow. "Is that supposed to be a compliment?" "Yes, because it was the best mistake you ever made." She felt a lump in her throat. He continued, "From the day you mistook me for a delivery guy, my life has never been the same. You challenged me, annoyed me, made me laugh, and in the middle of all that, made me realize what truly matters." She took a deep breath, holding back tears. "And what matters?" He intertwined his fingers with hers. "You. It has always been you." The guests let out a collective sigh. Valentina felt her face warm up, but she smiled. It was her turn. She cleared her throat, took a deep breath, and looked at him. "I never imagined I'd end up here with you. Especially because the first day we met was a complete disaster." The guests laughed again. She continued, "But maybe that's what makes us so perfect for each other. You teach me to stay grounded, and I teach you to always be prepared for any impending disaster." Enzo chuckled. "Sounds fair." She squeezed his hands. "But more than that, you taught me that love doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real." His eyes sparkled. and then the priest smiled. "Enzo Salvatore, do you take Valentina as your wife?" "1,000 times yes. And you, Valentina, do you take Enzo as your husband?" She grinned. "I do." The priest smiled. "Then I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Enzo didn't wait a second. He held Valentina by the waist and kissed her with everything he had. The guests erupted in applause. And right there, on that beach bathed in the glow of the sunset, Valentina realized she had found her place in the world. In the arms of the man who, against all odds, had become the love of her life. What did you think of Enzo and Valentina's story? Leave your opinion in the comments. On a scale of 0 to 10, what's your rating? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to follow all our stories and check out more emotional stories by clicking here on the final screen.